Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. What I'd love to do this morning on this absolutely cracking Sydney autumn morning is to go through a book entitled Codependent No More, a book that was published way back in 1986 by an author named Beattie. In the quiet moments between caring for everyone else, Beattie's masterpiece whispers a revolutionary question. What if you mattered too? Like finding a letter addressed specifically to your heart, Codependent No More speaks to that part of us that has been silently drowning while keeping everyone else afloat. Let's go for a walk and talk through the beautiful grounds of Sydney University and see what we can glean, what we can learn, and what we can take from this author's deep thinking, and see what we can incorporate into our own inventory of skills, knowledge, wisdom to help us become more capable of dealing with the challenges that we're all going to face undoubtedly throughout our lives. So the first message to come from this author is where we need to recognize self-neglect. Beattie illuminates how codependents focus immensely on others whilst abandoning themselves. This very insight helps readers recognize when they're neglecting their own needs, constantly monitoring others' emotions, or feeling responsible for problems they didn't create. The first step towards healing comes from this crucial awareness, identifying when one's own life has become secondary to someone else's life. We look at addiction, and more specifically to the addiction to other people's problems. The book reveals how codependency often functions like an addiction, a compulsive need to fix, rescue, or to control others. This pattern creates a false sense of purpose and identity, and understanding this addiction helps readers see how they've been seeking self-worth through solving other people's problems rather than through building their own fulfilling lives. The author talks at length about a thing called the boundaries revolution. Beattie's guidance on establishing healthy boundaries transforms relationships, learning to say no without guilt, to separate one's feelings from others, and to define where personal responsibility begins and ends, creates a solid foundation for healthier connections. This boundary work feels terrifying at first, but ultimately liberates both parties from a thing called toxic dependency. We look at a thing called the detachment practice, the concept of detachment with love, caring deeply while stepping back from control, offers a powerful alternative to codependent behaviour. This isn't about abandoning loved ones, but rather about allowing them their own journey whilst preserving one's sanity. This practice shifts relationships from suffocating entanglement to respectful interdependence. The feeling of reclamation is a powerful point to come from this book as well. Codependents often become disconnected from their own emotions, focusing instead on others' feelings. Beattie's work helps readers reclaim their own emotional lives, learning to identify, honour, and express their authentic feelings without the feeling of shame. This emotional homecoming allows for genuine connections based on truth rather than accommodation. We look at the self-care imperative, perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of Beattie's work is the elevation of self-care from selfish luxury to essential practice. Readers learn that caring for oneself isn't narcissistic but necessary. The oxygen mask principle in action. This shift from martyrdom to self-nurturing creates the foundation for sustainable giving from abundance rather than from depletion. There's a thing called the acceptance pathway, accepting reality, particularly the limitations of one's control over others, opens the door to peace. Beattie gently guides readers towards accepting what cannot be changed while focusing energy on what can be changed. This acceptance doesn't mean approval, but rather a release from the exhausting struggle against what is. And we look at recovering one's self-worth. Codependency often masks profound self-esteem issues. The book provides tools for building self-worth based on inherent value rather than usefulness to others. This internal validation frees readers from the endless quest for external approval and creates space for authentic living. And the last point to come from this author is where we look at the return to personal power. In all, Codependent No More guides readers back to their own agency. By relinquishing the impossible task of controlling others, people are able to reclaim the power to direct their own lives. This return to personal sovereignty allows for genuine intimacy based on choice rather than need, for anyone who has ever lost themselves in another person's chaos. This book doesn't just explain what happened, it lights the path home to oneself. What a fantastic book. Take care, everybody. Wishing you all the best, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.